welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We're gonna continue our coverage of the 2022 World Cup, covering all the groups that make up the World Cup, and we're gonna go straight to Group E, which consists of Japan, Costa Rica, Germany, and Spain. Japan finished second uh, in the Group B of their Asian qualifying. Costa Rica finished fourth in CONCACAF, then beat New Zealand 1-0 in the final round of qualification. Germany finished winners of Group J in UEFA, and Spain finished winners of Group B in UEFA. And so, I guess traditionally Spain and Germany are going to be the power horses that really drive the group for Group E. Um, and so obviously that game where they face each other will, I think most people will be looking at as who will finish first or second. Finish first and second. But hey, I mentioned it yesterday, and you guys can go back to listen to that podcast. Japan, man, Japan is a very interesting team, and if Germany and or Spain don't start off the tournament well, especially with their sort of younger players that they're calling up for this year's tournament, they might be a team to look out for, and they actually might just squeeze by into the next group. The next round of games. So, Mac, I guess give us some of your thoughts for Group E.
I like where you're going with this because I think this could be if a team, in my opinion, everyone's looking at Spain and Germany. Let's start there. They are the two teams that should come out 1-2 or 2-1, depending on which fan of a team you are. But with the start of the world of the qualifications, I would assume in the first matchup, when Germany versus Japan, Germany should win that. Let's assume that happens. So if Spain's coming in, and then when Spain ends up facing Japan, which is in their last game actually, they would have just after facing Germany. So if they don't perform well against Costa Rica, lose against Germany, they're going to come in and kind of. I know it's a hockey metaphor and a soccer podcast, but I'm Canadian. I'm sorry. They're going to be holding their stick too tight, right? They're going to be playing kind of on edge so much where on a counter in a certain game in a one-off situation like that, they could potentially see themselves out of a tournament. And Japan kind of playing in a position where they have nothing to lose can be very aggressive and come out and really get at a Spanish team. So I like where you're coming from with that take in terms of them being a dark horse. So it'll be very interesting to see because the map, I guess the game of this group, which of course is that Spain versus Germany, is the second one. So we really have a prequel to see how the teams are really going to be forming before the two big boys are really going to go at each other. So for me, that's the first thing that I look at is that individual game is going to set up either team facing more of the minnows of their group in the last game to see, okay, who's going to be the last one left standing, right? For me, I guess I think Spain have a little bit more, team cohesiveness coming into this tournament because majority of them do play for Barcelona, but at the same time, Germany, most of their team plays for Bayern Munich. So it's so interesting those teams playing against each other. If we were just base it off of that club performances, I guess everyone here, I think Gio, you definitely would be on board for Bayern Munich over Barca, right? No, that's where you're going with.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, but an exciting matchup between those teams, and I think we would argue is this the group of death if there is one in this tournament, just because of those two big boys, or do you think there's a different group that stands out? My question to you, Gio.
I would argue that Group H could be a group of death, just because just don't know, you just don't quite know what Ghana can offer. Things change. So Ghana, Uruguay. I'm sorry, who was the last person?
South Korea and Portugal.
South Korea.
South Korea. Um, you just really don't know. I'll like you can make the argument that either of those groups can be the group of death. And again, I think a lot of people are counting out Japan very early on. But again, I've voiced my opinion to you guys about how I don't trust this Spanish side. Again, like I mentioned before, if the front, you don't know, if the attackers, if the forwards were to struggle, who's that veteran presence that's gonna get you out of it? I don't believe in Alvaro Morata. I don't
I don't think Alvaro Morata believes in Alvaro Morata. Sorry.
That's
I don't think
disrespect.
Alvaro Morata knows where he actually plays, just because he's been transferred so many times. But and I just don't. think Sergio Busquets will be able to kind of sort of lead that midfield in this in this World Cup at least. Because we've seen him play around generational type midfielders, and now he's kind of alone. He does a lot of the dirty work, uh, um, so it kind of goes unseen. But who's to create after the dirty work is done? I don't think they have that in them either. Again, I'll voice my opinion about how Japan has always been a very fundamentally sound team. As past World Cups, it was very unfortunate how they were ousted last World Cup, again against Belgium, coming down to the last minutes, and again lucky goals that went Belgium's way. So yeah, no, I would 100% agree with Ray in saying that Japan is very capable in this group. I don't think they should be counted out. Is there even a clear favorite? Because Germany still has a lot to prove too, based on their last World Cup as well. So
Mm.
I think it's anybody's group. And I think again, if I'm Japan, Spain and Germany have a lot more to prove than we do. So again, to use Mac's hockey metaphor, Germany and Spain might be holding their sticks a little too tight. And you can see some magic from Japan. So hey, I personally would love to see it. But those are the big upsets we want to see in a tournament like this. So I wouldn't be mad at it at all.
For sure. And now let's move on to some juicy information. Would you be mad, like you said, would you be mad if you were David De Gea, finding out that he retired from international duty from reports are saying that obviously one of the coaching staff congratulated him on his international retirement, but turns out he didn't. So Gio, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think that's quite classless from the Spanish FA. Listen, um, you know, of course, like that's that's the sad thing about sports. When you're on top of the world and you're on your A game, you're treated like a god. But as soon as you start to drop form a little, it's your age or it's this and that, and the media starts to attack, and it's for me, if I'm David De Gea, I'm sort of gutted that even you my own nation's FA is kind of treating me like this. Obviously I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he's been very proud to to represent Spain at the world level. But yeah, no, to be forced into retirement like that, I think is absolutely classless. Whether it's David De Gea or any other person, I think that's quite classless for the Spanish FA to do.
Fair. And Mac, your thoughts?
It's unfortunate in terms of him not being on the team because if you base it off form, he's definitely one of the better goalkeepers in the world. But he's just a poor fit in terms of this Spanish team wants to play on possession, and that's the weakest part of his game. I would argue that every other goalkeeper, David Raya, Robert Sanchez, Unai Simon, they're all better with their feet by far than David De Gea. And I think that's the go-to when Luis Enrique is making his team is that he wants to be able to play comfortable and on the ball possession. For me, I'd be very interested to see. I understand him not making the squad is a big miss. I'm very interested to see how they structure their front three because in their final tune-up game the last couple of days, Ansu Fati actually started and scored. So I'll be interested to see if he starts off on the left wing with Morata, and my call for who should be on the right wing is actually Marcos Llorente. For me, he's Atletico Madrid's best player, and unfortunately, with him not being kind of an out he's not more, I guess, a possession-based midfielder, so he does miss out. But he has a lot of quality and a lot of to be able to offer that I'll see him on the other side. Of course, everyone knows it's Busquets with Pedri and Gavi in midfield. That's just how it's going to be. Even though I think if we were to be in charge, we will be like Busquets, you're the captain from the bench. Roger, get on the pitch, right? I think we're all on the same page there. But it's definitely still a very strong team. But I would love to see Llorente have a very good tournament. Alongside Ansu Fati. And even though Morata, yes, there are some questions, I think he does get shortchanged a lot because he has a lot of quality as a striker. And they can get enough goals out of him. And he's one of the few players, I think it was in the Euros, right? Where early in one of the games, I think it was the knockout round, he was booed by his own team because he was missing chances, and then scored a phenomenal goal in added time. But then it was still booed afterwards by his fans. So he's definitely kind of a guy that gets ripped on a lot, unfortunately. But if we're going to switch gears and speak about Germany just quickly before we wrap up into another group, a player I want to give a quick shout out to, Jamal Musiala, who's playing for the Germany team. I want to be able to see him play a lot for this Germany team. Make sure that he does start, because I could easily see him playing right in front of Kimmich and Goretzka. But there's just so many options for that team in midfield and even up top, where I know in any other tournament or any other team, I would have just looked at Mokoko and been so excited and hope he gets on the pitch. But there's so much quality, I can't see it happening. It's unfortunate, but I absolutely love this Germany team. So it's not a surprise I have them edging out Spain here. Anything before we wrap up on this one, Ray or Gio?
Well, for me, it was just seeing who they start up front. Like it's likely going to be Havertz, because even though they have Thomas Müller, who's ever present there, he's never really been an out and out number 9. And then if you look at the other front players, you got Mkoko, who is his first tournament. He's 17, still 18. Adeyemi, who's a wide player, and then Fulkrug. So I don't know. Likely, obviously, they don't have Miroslav Klose, who's if he was in this generation, obviously just slot right in there. But yeah, just interested to see who will start up front for them. Gio, any last things for this group?
Not in particular. Obviously, I wish, you know, that Florian Wirtz didn't injure
Mm,
himself last year. So he injured himself at a very high point in his career. So yeah, no, it sucks because I think if he kept form, he'd definitely be on the squad, and they would almost have a conversation of, obviously if Timo wasn't hurt, you know, do they almost play a front two with those two guys up there? That
Timo
would be
Werner.
very dangerous, right? With Verts and Timo. But yeah, no. I think again they have a lot of options. It'll be interesting on who they start in the midfield. I think is more important because they're able to create chances for Kai, and Kai needs to have a pretty hot start to
Yeah.
the tournament. I think if they concede and no, if they get a chance at a pen, I think they should give it to Kai. See if he can get started a little quicker. Because he hasn't had the greatest start to the Chelsea season. So I think Germany's success will come a lot from how focused Kai is this tournament.
Okay, well, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. So let's move on to Group F, which is made up of Morocco, Canada, Belgium, and Croatia. Morocco qualified, here noted as after beating Congo 5-2. Belgium, winners of Group E in UEFA and their UEFA qualifying. Croatia, winner of Group H, and obviously Canada, winners of CONCACAF. So, I guess let me throw it to you first, Mac. What are your expectations for this group?
So the correct answer to my question earlier, what is the group of death? It's this group, boys. Okay, let's call it the group of winners. This is the only group with 3 teams to finish top of the respective group for qualification. So let's put some respect on it. But moving past that,
I hear that.
it's very interesting because you have two. I know we're going to be a little bit Canada centric here, when obviously they're the lowest ranked team in this group. So, but let us cook for a bit. I'm sorry. But it's 2 interesting teams in terms of Belgium and Croatia, which you can argue this is probably the last cycle for their respective teams. So generally speaking, those types of teams don't go out on good form. Generally, it's the kind of that cycle before where that's when they start to really perform well, just as Croatia did, of course, reaching the World Cup finals last time. But you could see that this team is very, very aging. And Belgium, same thing, very, very aging, where their golden generation is getting phased out. And a lot of new players are trying to come in and take their spots, but don't have the same type of quality. So you can see a path where, like I kind of proposed, in terms of a dark horse team, where if you're countering against those aging teams, those weaker, I would say, argue defenses, a quick, pacey team can have something to it, kind of get at. So that's the first thing that comes in is let's be 100%, go a homer team. This could be something we could do together, boys. We got this. Come on. But it'll be very interesting to see how they play out. I think key for me, to be honest, I know we've talked about him a little bit, and I know that Gio loves to rag on me in terms of me hoping that he would have got to Arsenal. But I think this is a huge tournament potentially for Jonathan David, where if Canada are going to do well, he has to shell out. He has to be the main focal point. I know Kyle Laird in qualifications was more so kind of the striker up top, and David was playing off of him. But against teams like this, I don't know if you can have that extra body up there, and you need to focus more on the counter. And he needs to play the player that really drives them in and gets them the goals. So if they would have any shot, I don't. That's the Canada quarter for me, boys. But I guess on your side, Gio, what are your first thoughts when you're looking at this group?
So obviously, as of recently, as most recent, Belgium finished third in the last World Cup. But this is not the same Belgium, boys. This is not the same Belgium. Um, a hurt, a hurt Lukaku, not who's not fully fit. And then also, their defense is as not convincing at all. So, the day that we're recording this, to anybody listening, Belgium had a friendly versus Egypt. If they play the three in the back with the wingbacks, Canada could potentially eat this team alive. Um, Especially with Toby Alderweireld playing on the right side, where a certain somebody named Alfonso Davy likes to cook. Um, then it's gonna be problems for them, especially if Canada is able to keep possession and pull the wingbacks up a little higher and send that ball over to Davies, who we all know is extremely pacey. Um, he can have a great game against Belgium. So as a Canadian, I hope Belgium plays a three in the back, because then we'll see some great Canadian content. But yeah, no, I'm not convinced by this Belgium squad at all. KDB has a lot to work to do in terms of leading these guys. Obviously, on the left wing, you have a struggling beyond years now, of an Eden Hazard, and then if they don't have a fully fit Lukaku, you know who do they start up from? Batshuayi, who again we don't see as a full 90-minute guy. If anything, he's been a super sub his entire career. So yeah, no, this Belgium team seems to have a lot of holes in it. Although they are ranked quite highly in the world, I think again, yeah, they're just not convincing. And it wasn't until today when I watched the game against Egypt that I kind of given Canada a little bit more of a chance. Because I'm gonna give Croatia where w- I'm I'm gonna give them the credit where it's due. They were World Cup finalists. I do think they still have a very solid squad. Uh, they are hungrier than ever, just knowing how close they were. So I see them topping the group actually, and I actually see Canada making out this group second, not Belgium, after the performance I saw today. So if you want to call this a hot take, call it what it is. But just based on today's performance, not great at all. So yeah, that's what I, that's what I have to say about this group now.
Hey man. All right. Obviously, I'm gonna bring us back, basically to what everyone will be thinking. Belgium and Croatia should be the favorites in this group. Um, and like you guys mentioned, they have to be the favorites. They are the favorites, and they have to be because realistically speaking, this could be the last tournament where they come into the tournament, a World Cup, and they are one of, I would even argue, top 8 teams of the world that they believe could win the World Cup. That being said, it is a different World Cup. And the more you guys were talking about the faults of Belgium, I had them as my most disappointing team. Croatia, they are, canny operators. They have players who, know their roles and are great professionals. But hey, no one knows really much about Canada. even though we were the winners of the CONCACAF. So I'm not gonna get too much into how we should face Belgium or anything, but obviously because we're facing Belgium in the first game, but Belgium might have it difficult if that's how they finished off their pre-tournament games. Gio?
I just have one thing to add. What I do worry about in terms of Canada at this World Cup against these European sides is that the CONCACAF pace of game is a little different from Europe's pace of game and South
Agreed.
America's pace of game. So I think um, we will see Canada struggle in that sense to find a rhythm early, but once they do find a rhythm, I think you know they'll they'll compete with the rest of them, and I don't think they'll have an issue there. But again, finding that rhythm is important for Canada, and I think and if I'm John Herdman, I really got to instill that into the guys that this is going to be a different game. This is going to be a different level, and we have to be on the full 90 minutes. So yeah, yeah. Apart from that, which is probably the only thing I'm really worried about in terms of Canada, I think they have a great chance at getting second in this group.
I think
Matt, last thoughts?
their ideal situation is they want to go into the Morocco game. I know that we have not mentioned that team at all. They want to go into the Morocco game with the chance to be able to qualify. That's the goal. But in qualification, they played a lot of high press, trying to win the ball back in the other team's half. And I think that might be a mistake against these teams because you're facing a midfield that has Modric, Kovacic, and Brozovic, which that's going to be rough because they're very comfortable with each other rotating that ball. And even though I don't think they have the quality up top to be able to, I think, score as many goals as they would have needed to, Croatia. And on the other side, if you're facing a team in midfield that's going to have Kevin De Bruyne, that's going to be very comfortable bringing the ball at the back potentially. So it might be a change of system that they have to employ to be a successful team. But the goal for them, I would say, is to if they tie both games between Croatia and Belgium, and then that leaves them in a position to, if they beat Morocco, they have a shot at making it out of the group, and that should be their sole focus, in my opinion. And hopefully, Morocco, your team goes to shit. I'm sorry to. There's probably not a Morocco fan listening to this. Moroccan listen to this, so it's okay.
Oh, no.
I don't have to apologize. I don't have to
I am.
apologize. Okay, shut up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Hakim Ziyech, hey my boy.
Name me two more Moroccan players without looking at the squad list right now.
Um,
Moving on. So Canada. Oh, what a shot! Let's go.
Mbappe's teammate. Oh,
See, you don't even. He doesn't have a name.
That's the thing.
He doesn't have a
That's the
name.
thing. What I'm looking out for this matchup, Canada Morocco, is how Alfonso Davis and Ashraf Hakimi that
There
battle
you
is
go.
gonna take place.
That's why we have co-hosts, boy.
Man.
Hey, I said two more teammates. I assumed you'll get that one. I assumed you. Either way, that's going to be a phenomenal matchup if
For
they
sure.
go into that game with either team having a shot to be able to make it out of qualification for sure. And by the way, I think Canada officially, just be real here, has never scored a goal in the World Cup in its history. The last time they made it, they did not score in any of the games. So just being here is great, boys, and hopefully they bag a couple goals and give us a good couple games.
Records are meant to be broken, man.
Truth.
For sure. All right, guys, we're gonna take another quick break here, and then we'll be back with more World Cup talk. So stay with us.